So now time to talk about the big dogs. St Henri, and I know Tony is going to just. We should sit back and listen to the pros of Tony on this particular wine because I think it's going to be something special. I think.
Well, thank you for that introduction. I just wanted to respond to something that Erin said on that last one. The 2008 389. It's so glorious. Don't open it. I love that. That's just such an ironic concept. I've
got a glass, but don't you open one.
Well, I can tell you, I'm saving you from opening yours. It needs has more time in it.
So the St Henri 217. So interestingly, most of the reds in the package in the collection are 18s, apart from the Grange, obviously. But this is a 217, so it is a cooler, wetter vintage in South Australia. 4 districts, Barossa Valley, McLaren Vale, Eden Valley, which speaks a little bit about the style of fruit they want, but intriguingly, Port Lincoln. Now, Port Lincoln, of course, is one of the great regions of Australian winemaking that we all know and love.
And Judy.
Gosh, no, I have no idea and where that fruit has come from there. It's probably one of the vineyards up on the hill above the township. So I'm just going to read my initial notes from the tasting, which is basically, okay, wow. To see this wine without any of the oakiness of its siblings is to truly see this wine. And I think in context of what we were talking about of the 389, I think that kind of sums up in a way what St Henri is generally, but especially I think this vintage. I just thought there was some beautiful dark, deep fruits, sort of rich plum and blackberry kind of fruits in it, but it also had that kind of roasted nut and coffee kind of element in the background. None of that kind of vanilla-y, creamy, biscuity stuff that you get out of American Oak New, all that sort of thing. So for me, the balance and the structure of this wine, it was an immediately delicious kind of drink. I just thought that the fruit swelled and then dwelled on the palate. It just rose and stayed up there as you drank it.
James and I talked about exactly that same thing today of that wine. You put it in your mouth and it just sat there. It just didn't, nothing, whatever you did, it just sat there and lingered. And it seemed to, like a good Pinot, it seemed to even grow with time.
Yeah, I just thought, again, it was the classic power and grace kind of number. I just thought it was a really special Shiraz, and it's revered for all the right reasons. And I think this particular vintage really is a great vintage to look at it. And my other note, which I thought, which I wrote, was I think a wine like this, within the context of all the other heavily oaked Penfolds reds, a wine like this is an increasingly relevant wine in the marketplace because it doesn't have that huge hit of oak and cedar and all the rest of it. It is a wine purely about fruit, and I just, to me, it was one of the highlights of the tasting at McGill, and I've gone all out on it, and I've gone 98 points.
Yay!
Wow.
Can I tell you that I'm really, really relieved and delighted to hear you say that, because it totally thrilled me, that wine, and I'm guilty of really profuse tasting notes, but my last sentence is a real beauty, and I was on 97, and the thing that I loved about it was the fruit sweetness and the prettiness and the elegance, and it just kept going. It was awesome. And I think even more so in context with the wines, as you say, with all of the oak, it just stood up as being this kind of like image of just beautiful Shiraz. And I just thought that's very relevant to what I like to drink. So I loved it. Really, really.
Jenny, I bet this was right up your alley too, Jenny, so to speak.
Yes. It's a wine that many of us kind of grew up with. It's kind of always been there. And I love the way that Peter Gago calls it Shiraz Unplugged, which is exactly what it is. It's, again, getting back to the fruit. I mean, this is the thing that we expect from Penfolds. They've got all the best resources, especially in their own state, and you want something like this. You demand it, you expect it. St Henri, especially in Melbourne, as far as I am aware, This is what people buy year in, year out, and have for decade upon decade. You can't fiddle with this wine, and they never have, and I hope they never will.
And it's like it's a bargain. If you look at all the other wines, I just think this is the wine that you just kind of go, poor. If I had $120 spare dollars, I would. This would be what I would buy numerous bottles of.
Don't alert anybody at Penfolds to that fact, Angus.
Yeah.
And look, I think also it's interesting because, you take into context that it is that price differential from, in terms of Grange, for instance.
707, 169.
Yeah. So, but the interesting thing is, and I'm not at all privy to the joy of having a cellar like Ken does, where he's got St Henri's going back 400 years. So
Jesus, I think he actually had the Jesus St Henri as well.
The Jesus.
2000, the 0000.
So, but all the stories about St Henri, and Jenny, you may be able to sort of enlighten us on this, is that they age immaculately as well. So, so if you look at that price, you look at what it offers in an immediate drinking sense, and then you look at its pedigree in terms of cellaring. It's a pretty amazing wine, I think.
Yep, I agree. I was 97 points. I mean, I guess the question is, can the Grange be better than it?
Ken wants to say something.
Please.
Look, to be honest, and I can't put it in such poetic terms as whatever Tony said.
That's a given. That's a given.
Whatever he said. I thought it was a very good St Henri, but I didn't think it was one of the. I mean, it's not a 2010 or 2012 or a 90 or one of those wines that actually, in those vintages, matched the level of quality you got in a great Grange.
Yeah.
2010 St Henri, for example. I mean, that you could drink that ahead of the 2010 Grange. I mean, they're both spectacular. I don't think the 17 you're going to do that. From what Peter Gago's saying, he thinks 18 will be one of those 2010, 2012s. It'll be one of those superstars. I thought this was very good. I gave it 94. I love the elegance. I love the silkiness, the length. But yeah, it just didn't quite excite me as much as some of them do.
Yeah.
I know, Tony, I mean, you would have been there when the first one was released, Tony, so you'd have far more experience than the rest of us. But yeah.
I mean, I think what Ken's saying is it's pretty rather necessarily structural to some extent, but which I think is probably fair. But I just think it's so seductive.
I think it'll age for you've got 20 years or so with it. It'll be a beautiful one. And I really agree with the price. I mean, it's the one Penfolds wine that seems to be stuck in the mud when it comes to the price. Yeah. The others are going as fast as they can up the ladder. This one just sits there.
I'll edit that. I'll edit this little bit out of the video. I think because we don't want them finding that. So yeah,
I've got a feeling they know.
I think,
and it puzzles me why it's done that. I mean, do they not have the market that they once had for it, or I don't know. I mean, I'm curious to know.
They probably want to keep an insider wine. They want to keep a wine. Obviously, 407, 707, Grange, RWT. They get a lot of elephant game hunting collectors coming in.
Why would you? Yeah, I'd shoot it too. It's 407 and St Henri are not far apart now, and 407 is more expensive than 389. I mean, I spoke to Peter about this, and he was saying they get no complaints about price, and they sell all they make, and they could sell a lot more. So far be it, you can't argue with that. But yeah, I think.